Chapter 23 was given to, or at least the beginning of it was given to Helen on June 12th, 1967, in the Summer of Love, and it is entitled in the Blue Book, 3rd edition, The War Against Yourself, Introduction. And the new CE version, they named it The Escape from Conflict, and called the introduction Walk You in Glory. All right, let's get started. Do you not see? The opposite of frailty and weakness is sinlessness. Innocence is strength, and nothing else is strong. It's very important from the Course perspective to understand what power is. Power is unopposed. True power is unopposed. Power is not utilized as an attack against weakness, because if weakness is the result of something, remember, cause and effect are the same, so if it turns out that someone is weakened, power was not used against it, weakness was used against it, and he identifies what true power is, and that is innocence. The only way you could have changed your identity or your belief in your identity of yourself was to make yourself weak, because you have all power, and that power is in innocence. And the equality of the sonship is equal power of the sonship, and that power is utilized for what? To create, to extend, to increase, and nothing else, because it is unopposed. The sinless cannot fear, for sin of any kind is weakness. The show of strength attack would use to cover frailty conceals it not, for how can the unreal be hidden? So again, he comes back to this idea of attack. If you are attacking, if you see another brother attacking, you are not seeing strength. You are seeing weakness. In whatever form, whether it's in politics or anything else. If the attack is going on, you know that it is an idea of weakness. Therefore, it must be an idea of sin, or the belief in sin, which is the belief that you could change yourself, that you can change the will of God. Or they thought they could. No one is strong who has an enemy, and no one can attack unless he thinks he has. Thinks he has what? An enemy. That's why Jesus clarified, said, the Bible said, pray for your enemies. I could never have said that because I don't have any enemies. I don't believe in enemies. I only believe in the reality of the oneness of the Son and of the Father, Son. Belief in enemies is therefore the belief in weakness, and what is weak is not the will of God. Being opposed to it, it is God's, quote, enemy. Remember that these quotations that you see, when you see a word in quotations, it is an emphasis that was given in some form to Helen, and it is the idea that this is not reality. In other words, he just got done telling us there are no enemies. It's a belief. But if you believe in it, it must be opposed to the will of God. Therefore, it would be, in your now flawed thought system, the enemy of God. And if it's God's enemy, he goes on, and God is feared as an opposing will. So once you've dropped into this thought of separation, it is impossible for your mind, without the correction by the Holy Spirit, to not think that God is fearful, to not think that you're in opposition to his will, that you're going a different way, that you are in a battle. How strange indeed becomes this war against yourself. Again, this is a war against yourself. You ever see a picture of someone beating himself up? I think Jim Carrey, the comedian who seems to be on some sort of spiritual trek, he's starting to understand what he's not, but I don't know that he understands what he is yet. I can't remember which movie it was, but he was hitting himself. You think about what appears to be the lunacy of attacking yourself and beating yourself up, a war against yourself, and yet that's exactly what this thought is. You will believe that everything you use for sin can hurt you and become your enemy. Now, because of our religious upbringing, when we read something, everything you use for sin, we're thinking of specifics. Oh, you're using pornography, you're using weapons, you're using bad words for sin. No, everything you use to supplement this idea of separation and weakness then becomes your enemy. And guess what? We made everything to be able to utilize. The world was made to utilize to keep us in a thought of being against the will of God, to be the enemy of God. You are in a constant war. Everywhere you look, without seeing with vision, is nothing but war. Jesus tells us bodies are fear in form. So you're looking from a fear in form at fears of form. You have peopled your world with these bodies. And all the tools that these bodies can utilize are nothing but what you see as their armaments. This is unconscious, but that fear is there. If you're in a war, you're in a fearful situation. And you will fight against it and try to weaken it because of this. And you will think that you succeeded and attack again. Why do you think you succeeded? Because you have to think you succeeded. You're not giving in to the idea that you are in an impossible situation. You are not giving in to the idea that you're in an unbelievable belief. You still think you can win. And so you count these battles. I won that battle. Oh, did you see I argued that and I won that point in the debate? And so we believe in the ability to attack. We build up this history of wins, what we think are wins, when we have no idea for how to judge what our wins and our losses are, or our advances and retreats. So we count them as wins, and we say, oh, that'll work, so I'll continue to attack, because attack is my best defense. Attack is my greatest utilization for utilizing weapons to bring me in an equilibrium of what I call peace, which is not peace at all. It is as certain you will fear what you attack as it is sure that you will love what you perceive as sinless. Now, this idea of attack, it's an incredible thought. It goes so deep and it's so unconscious that you don't recognize attack as an attack. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, in the prayer pamphlet at the end of the Blue Book, chapter 1, section 3, praying for others. And he's talking about the ladder of prayer, and he literally says, to pray for others, to pray for things, for stuff, for bodily healing, is an attack. It is hatefulness at that level. Now, the Holy Spirit will utilize that because it's a form of prayer, so he has the answer behind all of it. But it shows you that you will attack everything. If my role as a miracle worker is to have and give you everything, to have, give all to all, and I'm praying for you to get a new car, I am attacking you. This is how deep this idea of attack runs, and especially in the religious context. But you'll love what you perceive as sinless. He walks in peace who travels sinlessly along the way love shows him, for love walks with him there, protecting him from fear, and he will see only the sinless who cannot attack. See, vision only sees the sinless, not looking at sin, but not even looking at the error. The advanced teacher of God does not even look at error, because error is illusion, and the advanced teacher of God only wants to look at truth. Why would you want to look at illusion of any kind? There's no need for it. If it's not utilized for a lesson, well, the lesson brings you to an advancement. So at some point we come to maturity in this real world view or real world mentality, and those who walk close to the lawns of heaven have their eyes on heaven. The goal is God. The goal is the true communion and communication of relationship between Father and Son. This is the universe. There's no room for illusion. So it is not seen. When illusion comes next to truth, which we do at the altar of the Son, bring your illusions to the altar of truth, illusions must disappear. This is why we keep a gap between illusion and truth, to hold on to illusion. So it's in the gap, because you have to maintain the gap. If illusion and truth come together, one's disappearing. Guess which one it is? So you maintain the gap. And the best way to maintain the gap is to stay in an attitude of warfare, an attitude of attack, an attitude of giving and receiving guilt, and not seeing the beauty of the sinlessness, the innocence of the Son. Because in the innocence of Son, there is no fear. Therefore, you are not in a fearful world. You're not waiting for the next shoe to drop. You're not worried what's around the corner or what's going to happen today. You've already decided what's happening today. And only that. So now we can walk in a place of confidence. He says, walk you in glory with your head held high and fear no evil. The innocent are safe because they share their innocence. See, why does the advanced teacher of God come to a place of invulnerability? Because he sees no enemies. He knows he is invulnerable. Because he's looking only at innocence. Innocence doesn't attack. It can't attack. You can only be attacked in illusion, in a dream, and in a nightmare. And we're walking in a different dream now. We've exchanged dreams. We recognized our dream was a nightmare. So we said, okay, I'm in a dream state. I'm sleeping here, but I want to wake up, and I have to wake up from a different dream, so I'll exchange my dream. I'm going to lay down all of my dream, and I'm going to exchange it for the Holy Spirit's dream, which is a dream of happiness, of peace. The innocent are safe because they share their innocence. Nothing they see is harmful, for their awareness of the truth releases everything from the illusion of harmfulness. And what seemed harmful now stands shining in their innocence, released from sin and fear, and happily returned to love. So this is the process of forgiveness. This is the process of miracle working. What used to appear to be sinful and fearful, through the process of forgiveness, has now appeared as a reflection of truth, of shining innocence, released from sin and fear, and happily returned to love. In other words, the thought has been returned to love. That's why Jesus tells us that every loving thought that you ever had toward another, any extension of love, no matter how fouled up it appeared to come in form, is still protected and held for you by the Holy Spirit. You loved your kid, and you threw him out, and you yelled at him. The form came out wrong. It was loaded with ego distortion. But there was a thought of love behind it, and that thought is protected. That thought is kept. That is the only thought that is remembered. There's no thought of a separate son in a body or a separate mind trapped in a body, in a home, or anything else. All that's remembered is the thought of love, of sharing, of care for one another. They share the strength of love because they looked on innocence, and every error disappeared because they saw it not. I'll tell you what, if you want to be at peace, you have got to stop seeing error. No, he was right and he was wrong. He's good and he's evil. You're on the wrong tree. 2 trees in the garden. One, the knowledge or the judgment tree of determining based on your past and your experience and your continued judgment what's good and what's evil. Wrong tree. Even the good thing, what you judged as good from that tree, is still the wrong tree and has the wrong fruit. It is a tree of death. It is the crucifixion tree. He told us to eat from the tree of life. In other words, the tree of the will of God, of the extension of the Son, of the Father, the effect of true cause. Who looks for glory finds it where it is. Where could it be but in the innocent? Let not the little interferers pull you to littleness. The little interferers pulling you to littleness. That's what this world was made to do, this false world. Just little interferers. Most of the time you're not in a tragedy or a total crisis. It's just little peck, peck, peck. I went out the other day and heard something in my backyard. Well, it was a woodpecker. Peck, 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 peck. Just this little, just gnawing at you all the time. Just little bites. Pulling you down to littleness. Sucking the truth and the sinlessness and the innocence and the true energy and power of God in your thinking until you're stuck in anger and judgment and looking for sin and guilt wherever you may find it. But you can only find it where it is. Innocence is in the mind. Innocence is in the Holy Spirit. If you have no other view in order to get to this place, just think of this. The Holy Spirit in me is going to see the Holy Spirit in all of my brothers, every other, quote, person I've come in contact with today. And that's the only operation that's going on. It's the only thinking that's going on. Anything else is a little interferer, and I'm not paying attention to the little interferers. That's residue. That's flick that off your shoulder kind of stuff. That is a practice. As you do that, those things subside. You stop paying attention to something, it disappears. Because you're the one that's giving it reality by giving it focus. Did you ever get focused on something? You can't stop. Even as a course student, you can get so focused on something and its error in another, usually another course student or whatever, and you're so focused on the error, you can't think of anything else. Because that's the way the mind has to operate in order to block itself, block its awareness, and block the impulses, the miracle impulses, from consciousness, from your place of awareness. There can be no attraction of guilt in innocence. Think what a happy world you walk with truth beside you. Do not give up this world of freedom for a little sigh of seeming sin, nor for a tiny stirring of guilt's attraction. So you're doing great, and then somebody says, "Oh, what do you think of? What do you make of?" And that's the interesting thing. Once you understand the difference between create and make, well, what do you make of this? What do you make of Trump? What do you make of Hillary? What do you make of this Russia thing? If you fall for that sucker, you are lost. You are heading down, you're giving up your freedom for a little sigh of seeming sin, a tiny stirring of guilt's attraction. Would you, for all these meaningless distractions, lay heaven aside? Your destiny and purpose are far beyond them, in the clean place where littleness does not exist. This form, the world, is nothing but a reflection of a state of mind. We know that. So, your state of mind is going to be reflected. It will be reflected in everything you say, in everything you do. Because actions and words are nothing but a reflection of the thought behind them. Even scientists and brain studiers or whatever they are, researchers, know that these decisions are made long before in time. And we're talking about milliseconds and all that. When you really look at it, you can cut time as much as... That's how some people realize this isn't real, because you could keep cutting time in half. Therefore, if you can keep cutting it in half, it must not exist. The only thing that can exist is eternity, which is a total contradiction of the idea of time. So the thought always precedes. Even when you make a decision and you choose door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, they can tell you, "Oh, you just made the decision," and then you go, 2. I'll take 2. No, you took 2 5 seconds ago. And the brain activity shows it. So everything emanates from your thinking, whether a true thought or a false thought, which isn't thinking at all. And everything derives from purpose. I won't go through all that again, but he says your purpose is at variance with littleness of any kind. In other words, your true purpose. Your true purpose here is atonement, is forgiveness. Your function is forgiveness. Your function is to be a miracle worker, and you have no other function. In heaven, you have a function called creation, an extension of all that is, because that's what love must do, is share and extend. It's not being interfered with by anything else. Here you are at variance with sin. Let us not let littleness lead God's Son into temptation. His glory is beyond it, measureless and timeless as eternity. That's how much glory you walk in. You can't even measure it. Why? Because it's always increasing, because the thought of God always increases. His storehouse is never empty, and it's always increasing. So what is temptation? It's the temptation to be little. That's an interesting word. I use 2 words, but we can make it 1 word, to belittle. In other words, if we're sitting in a place of judgment, we see ourselves as better than others, and we judge and we belittle others with what? Making them sinful, making them error-laden. Littleness as opposed to magnitude. Stop being little. Recognize your glory and the glory of your brothers and nothing else. Do not let time intrude upon your sight of him. Leave him not frightened and alone in his temptation, but help him rise above it and perceive the light of which he is a part. See, this is the power of the miracle ministry, is I have the ability, you have the ability, as a healed healer, to heal. Not by agreeing with their dream, agreeing with their nightmare, agreeing with their littleness, but by bringing them into the fullness of the light that is shared between the Holy Spirit in you and the Holy Spirit in them. If you can't agree on nothing else that could be shared between the two of you, if you have no common ground, at least see the common ground of the Holy Spirit until you see nothing but the common ground of the Holy Spirit, which is the purpose of salvation. Your innocence will light the way to His, and so is yours protected and kept in your awareness. To have, give all to all. How do you keep the light, the awareness of the light in yourself? Oh, I'm enlightened. Okay, come visit me and kiss my feet. No, if I'm enlightened, I know I must give this light. I must share it everywhere to keep it, because to have, give all to all. If I have it, the proof of it is I'm giving it, and I'm lighting the pathway for them as well as me. And there's always an increase, so my path is clearer, more clarified, more purified. See, there must be a purification, if you remember from chapter 1. For who can know His glory and perceive the little and the weak about Him? In other words, this is a dual thought. And it's a thought of totality. If you're looking at the little, you're in the little. You're either looking at the holiness or you're looking at the sin. Those are the only two goals in perception. You can't see a little bit of guilt and a little bit of holiness. You're seeing one or the other. So don't fool yourself. If you're seeing a little guilt, you're in a thought of guilt, and you're totally in a thought of guilt. Now, you're being drawn out of it. You're recognizing I have a choice here, but you're always in one or the other in any instant. And the only instant in which you are in totality of holiness is in a holy instant. Who can walk trembling in a fearful world and realize that heaven's glory shines on him? You can't. These are rhetorical questions, and Holy Spirit reason. He's just saying, how can you be fearful and believe that you are the Son of God walking in the fullness of your glory in total power both in heaven and earth? You cannot. Now, this is so important here. He says, nothing around you but is part of you. We make our world. There's nothing outside of us, and everything is within the mind. There is no world. There's a reflection that we call a world, which is a reflection of the state of mind. Therefore, everything you see is a part of you. There is no room in that statement for, oh, yeah, but that isn't. Are you telling me that all that stuff that happened at the high school in Florida, I had something to do with? I don't know. Did you see it? Then it's part of you. You decided to see it. That was part of your script. No, other people's script was, I'm the shooter, I'm the victim, I'm the cop, I'm the hero cop, I'm the bad cop. Everybody playing their part because we tried to write this script. But the true script of God is behind that. So it's a matter of, okay, well, how does the Holy Spirit look on this, which is a part of me? Here's the answer. Look on it lovingly and see the light of heaven in it. So will you come to understand all that is given you. In kind forgiveness will the world sparkle and shine, and everything you once thought sinful now will be reinterpreted as part of heaven. How beautiful it is to walk clean and redeemed and happy through a world in bitter need of the redemption that your innocence bestows upon it. What can you value more than this? For here is your salvation and your freedom, and it must be complete. In other words, must be total if you would recognize it. There is no guilt. I don't care what the scenario, what the situation, what the relationship appears to be saying. There is no guilt. There's only innocence in the shining glory of the Son of God.